The algorithm will always change and it doesn't always make sense and it's not always explainable and it's not even controllable by us, right? So everything that we have to do is make sure that basically all of the content that we put up is quality content. And that's really something that's important because being in the retail industry, you'll have those people that will push on to the social media team to make sure that there's content on a daily basis. But sometimes content is just not good. And you have to be able to take a step back and really evaluate what am I putting out there? Why am I putting it out there? And is it going to make sense to my brand, to who I'm speaking to?
This is Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest retail social media marketing challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Allton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what marketers go through, from awful algorithms to terrific trends and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, where we're digging into the challenges, successes, and the stories of social media and community professionals in the industry just like you. Subscribe to gain valuable insights that you'll be able to apply to your own work and social presence from each and every episode. Now, have you ever found yourself frustrated by the ever-changing algorithms of social media? Or perhaps you've witnessed fluctuating engagement rates that left you scratching your head. These challenges are all too familiar to social media marketers, especially in the retail sector. Navigating these hurdles requires not just technical know-how, but also patience, passion, and a bit of intuition. Our guest today, Sofia Vinitskaia, is no stranger to these challenges. As a marketing professional at Joelle Collection, Sofia has faced and conquered numerous obstacles, from algorithm challenges and influencer content delays to the unprecedented disruptions caused by COVID-19. Her journey offers invaluable insights and lessons on turning social media challenges into marketing wins. Hey, Sofia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this.
So excited to have you here. Can't wait to dive in. So if you could start by just telling us a bit about your role at Joelle and how you got into social media marketing.
Absolutely. So what I do at Joelle Collection is I'm their social media specialist. So I take care of everything that's reporting, calendar, strategies, planning, or coming up with creative ideas, researching influencers, restructuring if there's something that we need to change, or if there's new KPIs that we should keep track of, or new trends that we should keep track of. It is my responsibility to really be on top of everything when it comes to social media. If there's a new platform, if there's a new trend. So anything social media is basically what I touch upon when it comes to Joelle.
Fantastic. We're going to be talking about trends, new platforms. We're going to get into all of that. But one of the things that I know is a challenge, because I faced it myself, is the algorithms. They're different on every
Yeah.
platform. They're changing on a regular basis. And they don't tell us what's happening. They don't tell us how the algorithms are working. How are you working through some of these different challenges with algorithms?
It's a really good question. And I think there's no good answer when it comes to an algorithm change. I think that regardless whether it's going to change or not, I think the main priority is really speaking to your community. So, who are you speaking to? How are you speaking to them? And is the message connecting to them? And I think that's the main strategy to have, whether or not. I mean, if you're a social media specialist or if you're in the social media industry, I think that's what you need to focus on. The algorithm will always change and it doesn't always make sense and it's not always explainable and it's not even controllable by us, right? So everything that we have to do is make sure that basically all of the content that we put up is quality content. And that's really something that's important because being in the retail industry, you'll have those, people that will push on to the social media team to make sure that there's content on a daily basis. But sometimes content is just not good. And you have to be able to take a step back and really evaluate what am I putting out there? Why am I putting it out there? And is it gonna make sense to my brand, to who I'm speaking to? So I think, I wish I could give you a magical answer and tell you that, this is what I do or here's the key thing to do. But I think truthfully, no matter what, your content is pushed to people who will be interested by your content. So that's the way an algorithm works, right? We also have to help with hashtags and things like that. But in general, the way that it's pushed to people who enjoy or will potentially be prone to interacting with your content. So I think quality and just making sure that what you're putting out there is really truthful to your brand and truthful to who you're speaking to, that's the main key.
There is a lot of truth in what you just said, no doubt. We have no control over the
Yeah,
algorithms. We often don't even know why they're changing, and therefore the focus shouldn't be on the algorithms. The focus should be on providing value. Fantastic suggestions, but you also snuck this little point in there that I really loved, which is that sometimes other people in our own organizations will ask us to
yeah,
share things, and it's up to us as the social media people to say, no,
yeah,
this is not true to our brand. This is not true to our social media presence. This isn't true to our voice. This isn't going to be helpful. This isn't going to resonate with the audience. And therefore, it's actually going to be harmful to the
exactly.
brand long term, to the next post and the next post. And I'm wondering if you could, obviously, without naming names or anything like that,
Yeah.
share what's an example of something where somebody came to you and said, we want you to share this to social. And you're like, I don't think so.
I think sometimes it could happen through a bunch of examples, but sometimes you could do a collaboration with the influencer, and
Mhm.
what you discuss is not necessarily what you received, which it's okay and it happens, and sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. But then you have to realize that that's not the content that I wanted to put out because that's not what we discussed. I can give you an example where we asked an influencer to make sure that it was the most recent collection because that's what we were pushing, and they took items that weren't, or even snuck items that weren't from our brand whatsoever. So then you have to make the decision that what do you do, right? Because you do also have kind of like this contract. You did do an exchange for this, and now you have to reflect upon it. Like, is it worth me putting online? It is still a phase that is, enjoyed by many, and that is true, and really respects our values as a brand. It is a perfect match when it comes to influencers, but the content is just not what we wanted. Or sometimes it's just, you reflect upon a trend that maybe a funny trend came up, and then you think, or everybody around you is telling you, oh, we should do it, it's really interesting, it's so funny, everybody loves it, but the trend is maybe not this same sense of humor that you carry on your brand. So then you have to really take a step back and say, am I doing this for the right reasons, right? Because going viral is one thing, but also it doesn't mean much if your content after that like is not performing, right? Or if you're going viral but not to the right people, then again, like, your message is not coming across because, okay, well, fine, you made somebody laugh, or you created a little bit of a buzz, but truthfully, what is that doing for your brand? So I think that's where you have to kind of like think about the strategy and really think about what makes sense to you, or to your brand, should I say.
Oh my gosh. Say it louder for people in the back because that was absolutely true. I see it over and over again. Brands who are jumping on trends simply to jump on a trend. It has nothing
Yeah.
to do with the brand. It's not talking even to the right audience. It's a actual waste of time. But they're
Mhm.
looking for those numbers. They're looking for what some
Yeah.
might say those vanity metrics. So let's talk about those for a second because
Mhm.
I know in your work, in your experience, you've managed to increase engagement
Yeah.
despite algorithm changes. And obviously, you're not just using trends to game the system and make your numbers look good. What are some of those things that you're doing? How have you managed to do that?
I think being in the retail industry, I can speak about, products that we're selling. So I think really speaking about the product and the quality of the product, how the product is made, and the value of the brands. I think that's something that I think will come across regardless of the trends, regardless of the algorithm. It comes back, or circles back to the whole quality thing when it comes to content. I think, just again, addressing yourself to your clientele, or to who your customers are, or who they could be, like future customers, and making sure that the message that you're portraying is the message that they want to hear and that you want to give them. So again, like when it comes to, let's say, selling a t-shirt, the quality of the t-shirt is very important. Everybody sells t-shirts, right? It's not special, but how do you present that t-shirt? What do you talk about it? Or what is the image that you're selling with the t-shirt, or what is the history behind this t-shirt? And that's, I think, how we were able to really make sure that our content remained on top. Again, quality, quality, quality is the key word, I think.
Well, and what I'm hearing also, some subtext here is that you've taken the time to understand your audience. You know what they care about. They care about the quality of the craftsmanship. They also care about value. There's other things that are values to them
Yeah.
that align with the values of you and your business. And so you're making sure that those come across in your social presence. That's terrific. Bravo for that. You mentioned influencers earlier, and I want to come back to that because I work with influencers as well. And I feel the pain because I've been there where you receive something from an influencer and it's not what you were looking for. And that's hard. That's really
Yeah.
hard to have to go back to an influencer and say, I need you to redo this. I need you to
Yeah.
redo this image, this scene. In my case, it's often 30-minute presentations, which is super hard to say, I need you to redo the
Yeah.
whole thing. But what about influencers who are late? How have you worked with or worked around or dealt with influencers that are late delivering what they promised?
You know what? It happens all the time. And it is something that you have to prepare for if you are going to the social media world. Sometimes it could not even be the influencer's fault. Sometimes, for example, if you send a package, they did not receive the package on time. So I
Mm,
feel like no matter what, you have to be prepared. You always have to have backup content. So to give you an idea, I feel like somebody in a position of social media has to be really 360 or really be able to adapt to a fast pace, because there has been days where we were supposed to get influencer content. We didn't know until the very morning of the day of, and I had to go in the studio and film some content quickly and have it ready within an hour to make sure that we had quality content, but at least something to talk about. So I think the only way you can prepare is to just have a really solid calendar. And I think one of the key words when it comes to what an not sorry, an influencer, but a social media specialist or just somebody in the realm of the social media world, you have to be well organized, because those things happen all the time.
mm.
Same thing for trends. You have to hop on them very quickly because within a week they're gone, right? So having a solid calendar, planning everything, and having backups. If you're already filming content, like some, let's say you have a day of content that you film on Wednesday. That's what I used to have. Let's say I would have a full week. I had every single day mapped out, and Wednesday was my day that I was filming content. I always made sure that I had one more content to film, just in case of those little things happening, because you never know. And I think also having those backups allows you to react to trends or to have a fast reaction to the industry, because it will happen all the time. There's always something super fun that you want to get on board with, but sometimes you don't have time if you're not organized. So, organization and just making sure that you have backup content is what I do, honestly. Like, it's honestly not a great answer. It's not a magical answer, but it's the truth. It's just to be prepared, because it will happen. It happens. I don't want to say on a weekly basis, but let's say at least on a monthly basis of what influencer that will come back to us late. And like I said, sometimes it's really not their fault. It's truly nothing that they could have done differently. But at that point, what can you do? But you have to react, and that's basically what it comes down to.
Well, that's great advice. And even if the folks listening, even if you've heard this before, it bears repeating. Be prepared, be thinking as far in advance as you potentially can. That way you have those options to take advantage of trends or interject something new. I talk about this all the time with planning sales and campaigns. The further out you start, the more prep and planning that you can do in advance. That way, when you start to execute the campaign, you're not scrambling during the campaign to build the assets. All the
Exactly.
assets are already built. And if you decide halfway through the campaign that it's not performing well enough, you have that freedom and opportunity then to see what other levers you can pull.
Exactly.
And being prepared, like I said, I work with influencers a lot. I'm often doing virtual events. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, countless times, the day of the event, I'm either getting the session, the recorded session from the influencer, or they're ghosting me and they're not delivering at all. And having to deal with
Mm,
that is a
it's hard.
huge problem. But I also mentioned patience at the outset of the show as a value that is needed by social media specialists in retail today. And it's
Yeah.
almost the antithesis of everything we're talking about. We want to be
Yeah.
prepared, and it's almost like, well, how can I be patient? And I can't wait forever for an influencer to deliver this kind of content. What role do you think patience plays in your day-to-day social media
Whew.
efforts?
It's a good quality to have if you're a social media specialist. I think it's a huge role of what you do, right? Because like you've mentioned and like we've said, there's so many rapid changes that come. There's so many things to kind of tackle at the same time. There's so many things to kind of anticipate when it comes to algorithm changes, influencer being late, trends going left and right, launches sometimes not happening the way that you want it to happen. So I think being patient is a big part of it. Like if I had to put really the quality or what you need in order to maintain not only like a successful platform, but to maintain sanity, because it is quite like mind-boggling sometimes, is to be patient, well organized, and to also kind of take it easy. And I'll explain why. Take it easy because at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do more than what you're already doing. So if you're prepared and you're organized, you have to go with the flow. Like sometimes algorithm won't work out the way that you want, and that's okay. And you have to be able to accept those things and be fine with it. So yeah, sorry, I kind of I went in another direction with the whole like just go with the flow, but I think it's really important because I think it's also part of patience, being patient and being able to wait and kind of like stay calm about a situation is very, very important in this world.
And I can see that coming across and how you're talking about some of these issues. We're able to talk about them without getting upset, right? We're
Yeah.
able to relive some of these past experiences and issues without feeling down about it because we're just kind of like, well, it's a little bit zen, right? These things happen. There's nothing we can do about it per se other than be prepared and be patient. That's fantastic. Folks, we're talking with Sofia Vinitskaia about some of today's challenges when it comes to social media. And I've got a few more questions for you that you're not going to miss. But first, let me share with you a quick story about how another retail brand, Love Pop, is conquering social media.
Love Pop Cards is a 3D greeting card company, and we are about 5 years old, and we are based in the idea of creating magical moments. And so our company's mission is to create 1 billion magical moments. So I am the Director of Customer Happiness, which means I'm responsible for sort of being the voice of Love Pop to our customers, and then also being the voice of our customers within Love Pop. So it goes in both directions. So before we transitioned to Agora Pulse, one of the things that was really difficult for us was that we had a high volume of ads where customers were commenting and wanted to interact with us or wanted to tell us what they thought of the products we were advertising. And we had a limited number of licenses for our social media monitoring tool. And so we were unable to keep up with the inbox, and the inbox was actually unable to keep up with the volume of ads we were running. And so we both weren't getting all the comments that were being added to all these ads, and we couldn't reply to what we were getting anyway. So when we moved over to Agora Pulse and we got to the point where we had an inbox that captured direct messages, it captured the listening, and we were able to pull in the ad comments in the same place, we could use it just like we would use any other inbox like in our ticketing system. It's really changed our ability to follow up with customers and make sure we're being responsive and interacting with them when they want. Also, a little hidden feature that I love is that you can see the history of any customer's comments with us. So sometimes we'll get a comment and we're not exactly sure either if they were talking to us earlier or if this is somebody who has been giving us a hard time for a while. And you can just click on them and see their profile and get an idea for how they've interacted with us over time.
So, Sophia, earlier you talked about trends, you talked about new platforms. These are the kinds of things that are changing all the time. There's always new trends, new theories and strategies when it comes to social media. How do you approach testing those kinds of things?
It's a good question. I think I'm all for trends, honestly. I believe that brands have to be reactive when it comes to trends. However, I think the only thing, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is remember who you are and who you're speaking to and what's the point of it. So me, I'm all about testing, and honestly, I've done trends. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, and but I still believe that they're worth a try. Obviously, like I said, it has to respect your brand. It has to respect what you're putting out, like what you're trying to put out there. But I think that you definitely have to try. And I think a key component is also what platforms are you willing to try it on. For example, TikTok is very young, very trendy, very actually it's where most trends start right now. So I feel like if you're testing it out, it's actually a good idea sometimes. So just try it on one platform, right? Not everything works on every single platform. For example, a lot of trends don't work on Facebook because that's just not the demographic that enjoys trends or transitions or popular sounds. So remember who you're talking to, remember what platform you're using. And honestly, I believe that trends are a key factor right now in really making sure that your brand stays, let's say, I don't want to say trendy, but you know, repeating our words, but just to keep fresh, right? You'll see a bunch of brands out there that have been here for decades that are still doing trends because it is such a powerful, let's say, tool almost in the social media world to stay relevant, to stay really above when it comes to your competitors or just to the market. So That's kind of my take on it.
It's a powerful tool for brands to stay relevant. I love the way that you put that. It's a very appropriate and powerful approach to trends. I'm just curious, have you used Threads at all? What's your take on Threads, whether personally or professionally?
I'm so happy you asked that question because I was really excited about Trends. When that came out, the first thing I did, I was at another company, and the first thing I said was, we have to get on it. Like we found out about it the night before, and I said, let's go. Like let's go head in. We don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but we should not miss the wave. And unfortunately, it wasn't my decision, but we kind of missed the wave, which I mean is not the end of the world. It happens, and again, when it comes to social media world, you have to be flexible. You have to be patient because sometimes decisions that you want to make are not the decisions that are happening at the end of the day. So we ended up going on Threads, I think about like 3 to 2 weeks later. I think my supervisors really wanted to see, what were people putting out there and was it really on brand, which I understand. It is a mature decision. It is a smart decision. I think me just being, I guess, maybe I want to say more daring, I wanted to try it out right away. However, I do find that it has died down. I personally don't really use it myself, nor do I encourage the brand that I'm working with to really be on it, simply because I don't think it's necessary for us. Having said this, I do think that it could be beneficial for some brands whose demographic are present on the platform, but I believe by, just self-opinion that Threads did not live up to what it was supposed to be. So that's my expectation. Well, it's my take on the whole platform. I believe that it's a great platform, honestly. Like the idea of the platform is amazing and it's fresh and it's very similar to Twitter's, and people already love Twitter. So it was already a good idea from the start, but I think potentially it blew up the night it came out, the day it came out, it blew up the week it came out. And I think after that, people kind of went back to the regular platforms. They went back to Instagram because, it's Instagram. It has videos. It has you're already used to it. And then TikTok, which is to me, the most massive platform right now. So that's why I think Threads kind of took the side. But like I said, it is still an interesting platform if it is relevant to your demographic.
And I think that's the key. I would say that I'm asking these kinds of questions because I'm not sure if retail brands specifically are finding success on Threads. I can tell everyone listening, at the time of recording this, Threads just passed their 1-year anniversary a week or two ago, probably 2 weeks ago as a result of this recording. And in that intervening year, since that big bubble when they first launched and the year since, the platform has taken off. There are now 200 million active users every single month. And for those of us who are on the platform on a regular basis, it's fantastic. I'll tell you, I love Threads, and it's one of my favorite social platforms today. The conversations are fantastic. The people that and conversations that are being surfaced are absolutely wonderful. But I'm not sure if it's best for retail. So that's a very great observation that you made. You got to make sure that your demographic and your use case and your brand voice fit the platform.
You know what I think is interesting what you said, because I think that we have a different experience when it comes to that. And I think it is the retail world. And I have to tell you something. When we decided to go on Threads 3 weeks later, we understood that Threads is not where we're going to get our new clientele. It is not where we're going to, how can I say it, present a new collection and it's going to blow up. That's not what Threads is for. Threads is for community. And I think maybe that's why my answer is telling you that, it died down. And I'll explain why. I don't know if I believe I'm not wrong about the statistics, sorry, but I believe that I read recently that 10% of all new products got discovered on TikTok, which is mind-blowing. Not even on social media, on TikTok. 10%, which is to me an incredible number, but it's not a number that you're going to see on Threads, because that's where you speak to your community. That's where you have a discussion. That's where they get to talk to you back. And that's why Threads is really important and interesting. But when it comes to the retail world, and if you're trying to reach a goal, I don't think that's where you're going to get it. So just to clarify for everybody who's listening, Threads is an amazing platform. It is maybe just not a retail platform. Having said this, that is my personal experience and my personal demographic that I speak to. It is not going to be that for everybody, but I do believe if you have a community, speak to that community on Threads, on X, and make sure that you you should speak to them on every single platform. But Threads is a great platform to have discussions.
Very true. In fact, I'm just going to throw that out there. If you're listening and you're running retail social media and you're building community on Threads, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and bring you on the show and further that discussion. But one of the things that I love about you, Sophia, is you're exuding so much passion for what you do and the quality of your work. Can you talk about how important passion is and how it's maybe helped you overcome some of these challenges that we've talked through?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know how we talked about being organized and patient and whatnot? These are all great qualities that you can have in any industry, right? But being successful in your work comes with loving your work. And that's where I personally love what I do on a daily basis. I'm happy to go to work. I'm happy with what I do. And obviously, that doesn't mean that I don't get stressed. That doesn't mean that I don't get frustrated. That doesn't mean that, I don't have bad days. That being said, I'm happy with the work that I do. Personally, just social media to me is a very creative job because of the trends, because of the sounds, because of the transition. It's always new, it's always fresh. There's always a new way to bring, either your product out or to, convey your message. So sorry, I get like really excited about this, but I think passion is the key word, but not just in the industry when it comes to social media, but any job. But honestly, I think if you love social media, and whether you're an influencer or somebody who just wants some work in marketing, it is such a beautiful place to work at, especially obviously, when you have a really good team next to you, that really helps. But if you're a passionate person about the social media world, it interests you, it's, it tickles you. There's something about it that really gets you going in the industry. There's so much to do. There's so much to try, whether you're on one platform, the other platform, trends, just messages, and even, radio, TV. There's so much thing about that's just great. But honestly, social media is just it for me at this point. I think I've been doing this for a couple years now, and I definitely see myself doing that for a very long time. I just love it so much.
Fantastic. Now, my next question is kind of the antithesis because you've got a background in economics, and I don't know too many people that would pair economics
Pivot, yeah.
with passion. So, how has economics influenced this passionate approach to social media marketing and strategy?
Good question. So I do come from an economics background. So I have a specialization in economics. So the 4 years of economics, intense economics. And so a lot of math, a lot of formulas, which is quite the opposite of marketing, where you're really creative, you touch things and you film things and you do photo shoots and, you react to music or whatnot. You dance sometimes even when it comes to trends. So it's
Oh,
quite different. But I think my economics background has really helped me in one way. And if you're somebody in my role that does do a lot of reporting, that's where it's key. Because for many brands, they'll use a platform that gives them numbers. Like there's amazing platforms out there that help you do your reporting, like what we've talked about earlier. And they provide you numbers, which is amazing because it does half of your work for you. You don't have to do the math, you don't have to calculate it, but you have to understand what those numbers mean. And that's where the economics background really helps me, because I have this brain, or I have this habit of connecting dots when it comes to that. So back in my economic days, we would create formulas, and you would have, A plus B equal Y, and then you would try to understand what A does and what B does. Like, how does it really influence? Like, is it going up? Is it going down? Or are they balancing themselves out? Like, so I think that's where it's really helpful for somebody that is in the industry, because, like I said, understand, like seeing numbers and just putting them in a report, that's great. I mean, you do half of the job, right? But you have to understand it, because if you want to improve your content or improve your strategies, you have to understand those numbers. You have to understand what they mean to you and how do they influence you moving forward. And I think that's where I'm really grateful for my economics background. Although I have to say it was a really hard degree and I did not enjoy every single day. So the economics background is completely different. And there's days where I wondered to myself, like, why am I even here? Like, it is not as creative as I would like to be, but there's something about it that's so logical and so structured that really helps you, even honestly, on a daily basis. So that's where I'm really grateful for my degree. It has helped me enormously when it comes to reporting and just kind of moving forward with a new strategy, because I was able to understand those numbers and try to put them to work when it comes to moving forward.
That actually makes a lot of sense to me, and it resonates because I got an education in computer science and history, not marketing, not business. And a lot of people are like, well, what does that have to do with what you're doing today? Well, computer science taught me how to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And history taught me how to tell stories and understand which problems to solve. And so I'm still using that classical education and that deep dive, although I'll tell you, I was not good at mathematics at all. I really struggled with that. So I ended up minoring in computer science because I could not get through statistics. But I love that you mentioned the importance of reporting and measuring what we're doing on social media. And that's my last question for you. I'm just curious, how are you currently measuring the business impact of social media, and what metrics are you finding most valuable today?
It's funny because I had that question recently, and I think it is really important. For me personally, my number one till this day, and I don't think it will change unless something really different happens in the social media world, but engagement rate. And I'll explain why. So engagement rate includes your likes, your comments, your shares, and your saves, which is four key details or key components of a post or a publication. Is those things. How are people reacting to what you put out there on social media? So to me, engagement rate calculates all of those things, divides them by the people who saw the content, and then you have that number. So you basically know how many people reacted, whether it was a save or a like I said, a comment, a share, and then compared to the amount of people who saw it. And it's also interesting because engagement rate can be calculated in two ways. It can be calculated according to your followers or according to your impressions, views, whatnot. I believe that impressions or views are your key to actually knowing if your post is actually an engaging post. Because if I actually did a new strategy at my current job, and I was looking up competitors, what is their engagement rate compared to ours, and all of the answers would always compare the engagement rate to their followers. But these were companies that had millions and millions of followers, and their engagement rate is so low because their posts are doing maybe like 10K likes or 2K likes. But that is low. But the amount of people who saw it is not 2 million people. It is maybe, I don't know, 100,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 10,000. Maybe that day, the algorithm didn't help. So I believe that the engagement rate is very important, but I believe you have to look at the impressions and views of your post to really determine whether or not it was successful or not. So how many people viewed it? And on those people, how many people reacted to it? And my second most important metric is impression and views. And I'll explain why, because I think we tend to go with followers because we believe that the more followers you have means the more people love you and whatnot, which is a very accurate statement. Having a lot of followers is important and is very valuable. But the algorithm does not just push you to your followers. So they're pushing you to everybody. So your followers, your non-followers, people who might like you, people who might not like you. And you want to know how many people saw you, because again, the algorithm is really crazy and we don't really fully understand it. There's no like rule of thumb when it comes to it. But the algorithm seems to push you when people are reacting to you. So if that's usually how a viral video goes viral. So you'll have a couple hundred views, and then if they see that you're getting a lot of reactions, they're going to push you more and more and more. And to me, that's really important. I want to know how good my content was according to the platform that I'm using, because they're pushing me out there. So if I started with 100 views and then within 2 hours I'm at 1,000, and then I'm at 10,000, and I'm at 100,000, then I'm probably doing something right. Because if not, I wouldn't be pushed. My video would just flop. So I think impressions are very important. And obviously, I'm going to talk about followers. It is my third and most important metric. But I think that the reason why followers is not as important to me anymore, and that's something that I've learned throughout my career. It is not something that I would have always said or at least I wouldn't have said that maybe 2 years ago. But I've realized with the algorithm changes and how it's so uncontrollable that I think the most important thing is that even if you're at 2,000 followers, as long as they're reacting to you and they're engaging with you and you have that solid community, that's what is important. The community will grow regardless. If your brand is doing well and if you're being loved for what you're doing and what you're portraying or what product you're offering or what services you're offering, your community will grow regardless. It may be at a fast rate, maybe at a slow rate, but it doesn't matter. What's important is that you build that solid foundation with them, and it will take you where it's supposed to take you.
That is such a powerful point to stop on, because I was just doing another interview on a different podcast. We have a hospitality podcast. I was interviewing Potter's Resorts, which is a resort on the east side of England. How,
Mhm.
they had to basically close during the pandemic, like every other business and certainly every other
Yeah.
hotel and resort. But it was solely through the power of their community that powered them through the pandemic and allowed them to not only keep 80% of the deposits that they collected pre-pandemic. 80% of their customers said, no, no, no,
That's huge.
keep our money until you guys reopen, which is incredible. And then the day they reopened, they were fully booked, and they've been fully booked
Wow.
ever since they reopened. It's an amazing story. And it just speaks
Yeah.
to, like you said, the power and the testament of using social media to build community. I've talked before about using it as a moat to protect our businesses from whatever may befall.
Yeah.
So Sophia, you've been an absolute delight and a treasure trove of information. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. For folks who want to connect with you or learn more about Joelle Collection or you, where can they go to find you and reach out?
They can find me on LinkedIn. So Sofia Vinitskaia. I also have an email. So if you want to contact me, you can contact me at sofia.vinitskaia@hotmail.com. And that is my personal email if ever you want to just reach out, talk about something or, you know, just discuss for fun. You can find me there. But yeah, so here you go.
Thank you so much, folks. That's all we've got for today. But don't forget to find the Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition on Apple and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Until next time, thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, hosted by Mike Allton and powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.